Oh, Josh is also here. I'm not gonna bother him, but
Oh, you have specific technical questions or just?
yeah, mostly like just random tech questions. It's usually so that other people can learn and
Oh, okay,
know
nice.
know. And of course, I don't know if my team is watching right now, but whatever.
Okay.
So this was a great presentation by Bright Data. Of course, I learned a lot of new things on how you guys are, unlocking websites. Could you tell me a little bit about what types of signal are we looking at on a high level? I don't want to go more specific, but what sort of signals are we looking at that tells the browser that it's a bot, or I know it's a user agent, the proxy. What else are we looking at?
Like you mean the websites
Yes.
check? So there's a lot of things. There's the cookies you're sending. There's time. There could be timestamps in the cookies. There could be
Interesting.
there could be let me think. There's many fingerprinting. It depends on the website
Okay.
itself. Sometimes you like the captcha has to be solved. Like there's no way to like bypass that. Like especially like, if they require it. But yeah, like it's basically like every request. Mostly they try to like emulate with like like you're a real user accessing. So like let's say you're accessing a website, they try to give you like unique keys or cookies.
I see. Okay.
So basically, it's like replicating that, and you have to learn the behavior of the website and what they're looking for when you try to like access that website and
I see.
what they're checking.
I'll also, my all my viewers would also like to know what sort of browser technologies are available and what are the most common that people are usually using in scraping. Now, of course, we are familiar with Selenium, Chrome, Firefox. There are n number of browsers. So, which one do you should prefer, and is there a reason why we should prefer this over other browsers?
So Selenium and Puppeteer are definitely like the top.
Yeah, I
like
know,
it's like
people-
everyone uses those two. Other browsers, there's a couple of other like smaller ones that people use, but none that comes off the top of my head. But like honestly, anything that you can integrate the proxies into and allows you to scrape, that's not a problem at all. But like let's say like you're using like mostly people go for headless browsers,
Right.
since like it doesn't already come with like pre-configured like it doesn't send its own headers and you can control how you send the headers.
Okay.
So like sometimes like if you had any like especially like Selenium and Puppeteer, they use headless browsers. So like if you wanted to send your own headers, or if we have an unlocker tool which can
Yes,
set its own headers.
that's right. Yeah.
So like you can easily integrate that in, and it'll like you don't have to worry about like having to set that yourself.
That's interesting. Good to know that. In terms of how do you, when you are looking at a massive site, let's say Indeed, Glassdoor, I'm talking about big websites. So you want to scrape, let's say, all the jobs, right? And I'm talking about in scale of million. What's the strategy we should use, or how do we scale? Do we scale based on the page number? And it's very specific when I say this is when you, let's say, search for jobs in New York, there will be, let's say, 100 pages. Then you have searching for job in New Jersey, but New Jersey is in New York. How do you, how can we make a way that, duplicate records are not taken into consideration? What's the strategy? Should you launch each page in a separate instance environment where all the particular, let's say there are on a page there are 10 records, so that means I'll launch 10 Selenium fleets for a particular page. What's the strategy we should be looking at in terms of architecture here?
So actually, it's funny that you say that because we have an Indeed collector that like you can
Oh,
run
really?
through pages of
Ah.
like collecting data.
Alright.
Like it's so if you that's like one good thing you can check out. But like if I were to build one myself and try to access Indeed and scrape through pages,
Right.
I would probably like I know a few people that I've worked with. They like for duplicate records they like build it into the script to like see like if this key, if they're like maybe the description of the job listing
Okay.
matches like the thing like matches the description of another one and the time, things like that. But like if you're trying to let's say like scrape hundreds of pages and use proxies and not get blocked, the best way is to mix up like I would say like maybe like you can use like an IP depending on what region you're searching in.
Okay.
So like if you're searching for like New York jobs, like using New Jersey, New York IP, or things like
So
that.
what's the strategy one should follow? Should a person usually go with like the states and go over all the pages? Is that a good way? How should we
So-
approach this problem?
That's the way I've seen so far. Cause like
I see.
I was working with a client that was using it for monster.com, not Indeed.
I see.
But they I recommended doing it with state cases, like, you can input a state. They were like, no, like we want to fetch all the data from like everywhere and just
I see.
filter it out, from there.
Okay.
So like I guess and using it in real, like they fetch it in real time, or like have the collector run a certain amount of time so they can get all the
Right.
listings, and just keep we keep it updated on like job listings that appear like as new, a certain amount of time, or like as new listings.
I think that's a great suggestion. All I wanted to also ask is, so when you are looking for a state, should you launch let's say whatever n number of states, should you launch all the states in a separate thread? Means they are in a separate compute environment with each having its own Selenium, and each state would have its own page. Should you also launch that in a thread? So essentially one thread gets diverted into many threads. What's the strategy we should follow here essentially for this?
Actually, that's better to do if you were to find like let's say if you were to scrape 100 or 200 pages worth,
Okay.
because you can go through more listings and you can get like further and deeper results. But if you were to let's say search without a state, you'll hit like maybe a closer date, because like the listings can vary if you try to search with no specified state. But if you were to specify a state and search, you'd be able to definitely fetch more data and get accumulate a lot more than not
That's really interesting. Thank you for that. Other thing I wanted to ask is in terms of scaling right now, this is a big question. Usually, every company has its own architecture on how they want to launch these scrapers. If we talk about cloud, Lambdas is one of them, step function, batch. What other services do you think, or I don't know if you want to just tell about the high level on what are we using. Could you tell us a little bit more on, are you using EC2? How are you being managing? How the scheduler is being managed? A little bit more on that, if possible.
So
On a high level, as I said, very high level. I know it's.
That I mean, in terms of that high level, I can't.
Oh,
deal
I
with
see.
it.
That's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine.
Yeah, that's a little above me, but
Got it. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Perfect. That's.
But,
Now, could you want to tell my friends and viewers who are watching a little bit about what all products you have, and maybe they can go to their website and watch a couple of products that's highly being used by people. I think one is the unlocker.
Yeah, the unlocker is definitely good if you already have a scraper or
Right.
something to integrate proxy. It's like a smart proxy. So think of it like you go to a website, you don't have to put any headers, you can just access it and not get blocked.
see.
And actually emulate it like a real user, and it saves a lot of engineering time with
Okay.
trying to keep up with websites like LinkedIn that are constantly blocking requests, things like that. The better tool than that is if you don't have a scraper and you just want to get the data, it's the data collector.
I see.
And the data collector is amazing. It's you can go on any we have pre-made templates. We can create new templates.
Got it. Makes sense. That's really interesting. Yeah.
And we have data sets, historical data sets as well.
I see.
But yeah.
What's one of the best strategy do you recommend when you want to scrape? So let's say I'm scraping a website. Do you recommend creating a snapshot? When I say a snapshot, essentially putting the HTML on a S3 bucket or some cache, and when another wants to use it, you use the cache one, or do you recommend every time to go? What's what do you recommend here? Do you recommend taking a snapshot like a caching layer here? When you do scraping, what's your recommendation here?
So our collector has that actually.
Alright.
You can get the HTML and the screenshot for almost any collector.
Okay.
But yeah, I recommend that actually to get a lot of people require screenshots, especially for let's say Monster, or not Monster, sorry, Craigslist. They want to they get the data from the listing, but then they don't want just the image URL. They just want to take screenshots of the page or see how the page looks like, or the JS rendering in the back, things like that. It's more use case dependent. But if that's something with the HTML, I think it's always good to capture it,
I see.
especially because some people just want to open the HTML back up and just see the layout of the site, or it
see.
could be small things, but
That's interesting. My last question, I won't take much of your time, but what were the challenges when you were building this scraper in terms of technical challenges, infrastructure challenges? Could you talk a little bit about the technical challenges that you had implementing the scraper project so people can learn from your mistakes and not do that?
Right. Okay, so let me think. So I think the initial challenges is like thinking about like how exactly am I gonna like basically like it's like when you create the collector you have to think of it as like if you're emulating yourself going in and fetching the data, right? So sometimes initially when you get to a page then you think like, wait, no, I need more data on the next page. No, I need more data on the next page. So before like, you actually start building it, you have to sit down and structure out each step and build it into steps. And okay, like I'm gonna get the URL from this page and then open it up in the second page, and then get the URL from the second page, and if I need to open it up in the third page, and then parse this data.
Okay.
So basically, it's like laying out the collector.
Okay.
And also fetching, if there's not information on the page itself, the collector allows you to fetch data from like the network tab. So you can like tag like API packets or things in the back end and just fetch the data there. Because a lot of people will look at things on the page and be like, oh, you know, I can't find the data here. That means it must not be here. It's not always true. It could always be in the API at the back end.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot of times. Yeah. Last question. Two more questions. I know I'm being a little annoying, but
no, it's okay.
So when you have data, so say a customer wants to transform the data. For example, you have job title, description, and let's say link. It's in a, so some people might want it in a particular format. How do you make sure that or how does Bright Data handle that problem of delivering the data, the raw data into the transform? Because every customer needs the data in a particular format. How does that is taken care, or a little bit discussion on that?
So you mean, okay, so for the collector you mean?
Yes. So once the data is there from a collector, let's say a company requested we need it in this format. Someone said, oh, I need a GZ, I need a Parquet. What are things you are using here?
So right now we have a JSON, CSV, XLSX, and flattened CSV. Those are our formats.
Okay.
So right now it's super simple. The collector just gets the HTML or the HTML of any page you're going to or API, and then basically parses the JSON or parses it into JSON format or CSV format, whatever you want it to parse it into. So basically you just list the outputs that you want, and it just formats like into the like JSON format or CSV format, whatever you specify, and then it just returns it to webhook, email, like any output that you want to send it to.
Okay, that I think I don't have any questions further. If you just want to talk a little bit about yourself, when did you start at Bright Data, what do you do? So that would be really nice. So would you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Johan Raju. I live here in New York. So I started working here at Bright Data actually about a year ago, like last September. Okay. So yeah, it's been a year. I started as support here. So I'm a technical pre-sale engineer now. So I just go on calls, help people integrate with the collector, the unlocker, things like that. And yeah, like I love it so far. So
all right,
nice.
great. It was really nice talking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, bro. Of course.
Thanks, man.